What's going on, guys? Welcome to Crosswit, and this is a movie review. Before I get into that, I just want to ask everyone to please go to all of our social media platforms and hit like and subscribe, especially on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, or even if you're watching through Facebook, it should be on the YouTube channel. So please hit that subscribe button, watch the videos, hit like, drop a comment, send us something to let us know you're there. It helps us with numbers. It helps us with a lot of things. So we appreciate all your support. Okay, so this movie review is about Creed 2, which I just left the theater, just watched this movie. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you haven't seen the movie, absolute spoiler alert here, okay? I cannot emphasize this enough. I'm going to talk about the entire movie. I'm going to talk about what happens. If I give you a movie review without spoilers, then I'm basically just doing what's already been done out there, and I can't really put my views on the movie without telling you what happens. So this is my review of the movie. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to know what happens in the movie, then stop this right now, because I'm about to go into a lot of the film. All right, so Creed 2. Creed 2 is a follow-up to Creed, which for you who may not know, I can't imagine you're watching this if you don't know, but that is the next chapter in the Rocky film franchise. Okay, I guess it's kind of a standalone now, but essentially what it is it is the storyline of Apollo Creed's son, which was, for all the Rocky fans out there, know that was Rocky Balboa's friend, trainer, at one time rivalry. And in the original franchise, 30 years ago, Apollo Creed had taken on to training Rocky after a severe loss, and then he befriended him, and in the fourth movie, in Rocky 4, Apollo Creed went on to fight Ivan Drago, and Ivan Drago was a Russian boxer, and in that fight, Ivan Drago, the Russian boxer, killed Apollo Creed in the ring. Okay, so it was very 80s style of a movie. You know, the music and the kind of the flair and whatever, and for that reason a lot of people have called it cheesy, but I didn't think Rocky 4 was cheesy. I still watch it to today. It is an 80s movie, and you know, movies of different eras are going to have, you know, certain feels and certain flows or whatever, but you know, I didn't feel like Rocky 4 was cheesy. It was just a different time. But Rocky 4 was one of my favorite movies, so I was very interested to see what happens what happens with this storyline. Honestly, like a lot of people, I was skeptical going into this, because you know, the idea of, you know, I thought Rocky 4 was a great movie, honestly, but the idea of taking Rocky's, you know, the boxer that Rocky's training, which was Apollo Creed's son, and 30 years later having him fight Ivan Drago's son, you know, it seemed to me that was going to be kind of hard to pull off and take the movie seriously. And I was wrong, okay? I was absolutely wrong, and I was pleasantly wrong. I'm going to tell you guys, there wasn't much of this movie that actually there wasn't any of this movie that I didn't enjoy. First of all, just let me give credit to the director. I don't know how you pulled that off. I really don't. I don't know how you took a movie with what would seem to be such a kind of a cheesy line or a cheesy plot and turned it into a very serious, very emotional story. You essentially have the same pattern in most Rocky movies, and to be able to take that pattern, and for the Rocky fans know what I'm talking about, for those to be able to take that pattern and put a new twist on it and draw as much from it as the director did, was quite simply amazing. Okay, it was just simply amazing. So great job on the directing, and that's every part of the movie. Okay, every scene was relevant. I didn't get bored. I never really knew what to expect in the next scene, even though it was obviously following the typical pattern, and we'll talk about that probably in a minute. So let me go to the cast. Sylvester Stallone, which assisted in the screenplay, did phenomenal at carrying on that character. You know, just when you think, you know, what else can Rocky say? What else can he do? What other lines can he give? How can he make, you know, I mean, what other motivational intelligent philosophical insights can this man give? Whenever you think that, he gives another one. So he portrayed the character absolutely phenomenal. And not just as Rocky, but as Rocky possibly even leaving the franchise. I mean, when I saw Rocky Balboa, which was the movie before Creed, after Rocky 5, which was an abomination. Rocky 5 was an abomination. But Rocky Balboa, which is essentially Rocky 6, to me that was Rocky saying goodbye. That was full closure. Okay, that was it was over, and I thought it was done much better than Rocky 5, and I was ready for the whole franchise to be gone. So how do you develop this character? Sylvester Stallone has done a great job at continuing and developing this character as the character gets older. So you like this character, Rocky Balboa, for a lot of the same reasons that you liked him before, but now you can't actually like him and he's not a fighter. You can't actually like him, and not just as a trainer, but just as a person. So great job for Sylvester Stallone on that. The rest of the cast, I'm not going to go into every specific one of them. They all did great. The characters were very believable. And they just really, really drew. I mean, every character in this movie pulled you in. And to include the antagonist, to include Ivan Drago and Victor Drago, his son. And I'll try to get to that in a second if I don't forget. But let me give the credit to the star of the movie, which is Michael B. Jordan. One of my favorite actors. Just, I think, a brilliant actor. And, when I watch him play this part, I believe that this is Apollo Creed's son. So, he has stepped into that role. He is just enough of Apollo Creed, just enough of Rocky Balboa's character, and just enough of a modern person in this era that it all fits. He's emotional. He's, he's funny when he needs to be, and he is absolutely believable in this character. He really brings it to life, and he pulls you in. So we know that. Obviously, they did a good job. I knew he was going to do a good job, even if the movie sucked. I knew it. I knew what kind of to expect with Sylvester Stallone. What surprised me about this movie, though, the most was the antagonist. Was Ivan Drago and Victor Drago. Ivan Drago being the character that killed Apollo Creed in Rocky 4, and the father of the new challenger to Creed. So, in the movie, basically what happens is you start the movie off and Apollo Creed's son won the world championship. He just wins the championship, and he doesn't really defend it against anyone before he fights Drago. So Ivan Drago's son challenges Apollo Creed right off the bat. Now that sounds cheesy, but what they've done is they've given you a backstory that you didn't get in Rocky 4. They take you into the lives of Ivan Drago and Victor Drago, and you understand where Ivan Drago was before the Rocky 4 movie, what was going on in his life, and they do a great job of you seeing what has went on since he lost to Rocky Balboa in Rocky 4. And he's lost everything. He's lost his wife, his country has basically, exiled him, and you get an actual, you have a ton of, empathy or sympathy for these characters. You're pulled into them. At some point, you're going, man, I really understand why these guys are the way they are. So they didn't just, have some bad guys in there, and they're, and they're just there, and they're just bad, and they're evil, and you just hate them. You really understand where these guys come from. So, Apollo Creed's son, he fights Victor Drago, which is, and he fights it and he loses, all right? He loses dramatically. So you've kind of got like a Rocky 3 thing going on to where, when Rocky lost to Mr. T and then Apollo trained him and he came back, it's kind of that. He has a dramatic, a horrible loss, a loss that looked like it should have also killed him the way it did his father. So, and it was done, it was really, when that happens, you're going, oh my God, history is repeating itself, but in a very believable way. So he suffers a loss, and obviously it destroys him. He's at a place where he starts to test himself, he starts to question himself, and he's at a position where he's got to decide if this is something that he wants to do. And it seems to me that he's more torn in this than maybe Rocky's character was in the original films. It seems to me that after this loss, that he's not 100% sure that he does want to continue fighting. So you go through that kind of road with him, and you're heartbroken with him at the loss, and then he comes to a point where he decides, yes, this is who he is. He can't go on knowing that he ran or that he left boxing, with this type of defeat. And you see some scenes to where he's at the gym, and you can tell that he's tormented, that he's fighting, and he's trying to decide where he's going to go. Very, very emotional. It just draws you in. But while that's going on, you also see what's going on in the Dragos. You see the son and his father, and you question what type of relationship they have. Is it a good relationship? Is it a bad relationship? The father is pushing him, and it almost seems like sometimes you think, well, this, the son hates the father, but it doesn't go there. So you're always wondering what exactly is the nature of their relationship. How do they feel about each other, and how is this going to play out in the final scene? So there's not a whole lot of a big training scene like you would expect to see in Rocky. There is some of it. It is dramatic. It is kind of what you would expect in the sense that he takes him out of his environment, he takes him out of his comfort zone, and he puts him in that type of deal where he goes away from what he's comfortable with, and he has to conquer an environment and conquer being uncomfortable and just all those things while he's training. And then you will see the opponent. You will see Victor Drago training, but it's not. The drama in this movie didn't stem from that. That wasn't the big part. The big part was their personal stories, which I thought the director, the writers did a great job in giving each character in this movie an individual story, and just enough to make it interesting. Even Creed's mother, the widow of Apollo Creed. I mean, you even get a look into her head and her mind, and it's done brilliantly. So in the fight, and this is where, look, this is honestly, if you're gonna go see the movie and you're okay with some spoilers and you're not okay with the whole thing, this is probably where you need to stop listening, because I'm about to tell you what happens when they fight. You don't know what to expect. Honestly, it could have went either way. At this point, Creed has lost, or he has won the previous fight, but he won it to a disqualifier. When in the first fight that he got knocked out, and I know earlier I said he lost the fight. He technically won the fight because Drago hit him after he was down, which disqualified Drago. So the champion, Apollo, is still the champion going into the second fight. He was knocked out. He physically lost the fight, but he technically won the fight due to a disqualification. So that's what you're going into the second fight that they have. He's still the champion. So at that point, as I was watching the movie, I was asking myself, which way is it going to go? Because I can see it going both ways. He could just win the fight. He could knock the guy out, which would be very, that's kind of what you expect. A lot of people would expect to happen. Then, in the tradition of Rocky, the original movie, and Rocky Balboa, he could lose by a decision, which would, also make sense, considering at this point you become you developed a lot of sympathy for the Dragos, and you're not just, it's not as simple as I'm going for Creed. You understand what another loss to an American is going to do to this family, how it's going to hurt these people that you actually, that you've come to be interested in, if not even to care for those characters some. So I saw this fight, and coming up, and I was asking myself, which way is could this possibly go? The fight scenes are great. They're real, I think, good in the new, more realistic looking fight scenes than maybe the original series. They keep you in there. There's not an overkill of I'm down, now I'm back. There's a good mixture of, you don't know what the next punch is going to mean. And so I thought the fight scenes, the boxing scenes were very real. They're very loud, and they're good. Okay, they're good. I like them as much as the first Creed. I've heard some people say that they didn't, but I thought they were on par with that. As the fight progresses, it's obvious that Creed has his training time with Rocky, which he didn't have for the first fight. He has now has paid off. Rocky put him through a much more brutal type of training. He changed his style up to be, to match Drago style in this one, so the fight is much better matched at this point. But during the fight, as interested as I am to watch Creed's reaction with Balboa in the corner, I was much more interested, and I think this was on purpose. I think the director and the writers really drew you more into to Drago corner. And there's a lot of family stuff going on. They lost, Drago lost his mother left his father after his father lost to Rocky Balboa, and his country basically exiled him, and his mother was more interested in her stature in the Soviet Union or Russia than she was in her family. And you saw how that had obviously beat up Ivan Drago through the years, how it had hurt him through the years that he lost his family, but he had stayed with his son. He'd raised his son to do the only thing he knew how to do, which was and have a relationship with him, which was to train him to be a fighter. You thought that was just so he could maybe relive his life through his son, but at the end you realized that wasn't the case. And if it wasn't the most important thing. During the fight, Creed eventually starts to get the better of Drago, and he is in the corner, and he's actually punishing this guy. I mean, he is punishing this. And then you see something that happens that I never saw coming. I never saw it coming. If you're familiar with Rocky IV, you remember the most controversial scene of that character was that Rocky Balboa thought about throwing in a towel when he saw Apollo Creed in trouble. When he saw Ivan Drago beating Apollo, he almost threw in a towel, but he chose not to because Apollo had told him not to, and then Apollo died. And now, 30 years later, you see Creed's son doing some serious damage to Drago, probably not life-threatening, but Ivan Drago, his father, walks over to him after he realizes that everyone's abandoning him again. They've said this is a loss, and his own country, that the people that came to see him have already given up again. And there was like a moment, you saw it when Dolph Lundgren played his part, you saw it in his eyes that he realized that doesn't matter. My relationship with my son matters the most. He goes to the corner and he gives his son a way out. He saves face. He let his son save face. He throws in a towel. And I did not see that coming. When Ivan Drago threw in a towel, all I could think was those scenes where Rocky didn't throw in a towel in Rocky IV, and it was just, man, talk about pulling something out of your hat. Well done on that one. Good twist. He throws in a towel. Creed obviously wins the fight, but then the next scene shows Ivan Drago go into the ring, and he grabs Victor Drago. He looks at him and he says, "It's okay. It's okay," and he hugs him. That moment right there is showing a humanity that he chose, that he wanted his son to know, don't worry about this. This is not about me. This is about you. It's okay. I'm still your father. I'm not just your trainer. That was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. And the film ends with closure. There is a scene where to me it seems obvious that they're making a point to show Rocky passed the entire franchise off, the story off to Creed, which makes me wonder if there is another one, if Rocky will even be in it, or if this was a complete pass off. And you'll see that when you get there. It's just basically a fist bump, and he tells him, it's all yours now. I get the feeling that they were setting that up so that the next Creed doesn't have to have Rocky Balboa in it at all. That it's its own franchise now. It's its own movie. It's standalone, and I think it's deserved it. I think it's earned that. I think these two movies have been great, and I think it's there. But also, and no one is probably may agree with me on this, but it seemed an awful lot to me that they set something up for possibly the Drago family to continue on. Maybe making another appearance in Rocky later on, maybe a separate storyline, prequel, I don't know. But it just, there was too much development into these characters for me to believe that this was the end of them. And one of the last scenes of the movie showed Drago, Victor Drago and Ivan Drago, Dolph Lundgren and playing Ivan Drago obviously, and his son, the characters. It showed them running, and they were obviously training again. And to me, that had two meanings. It showed that their characters were not done in this series, but it also showed that that they were still very much a father and son team, and then I got a feeling that we'll be hearing or seeing from them later. So, what have I missed? The characters were outstanding. I thought the writing was great. The directing was amazing. The fight scenes were good. The character development was just absolutely awesome. There wasn't a minute of this movie that I didn't enjoy watching. So my opinion on Creed 2, it delivered, and it delivered in a big way. It's tough to not get emotional watching this movie. So, you know, I don't really have a rating system, but I would tell you, you know, thumbs up to Creed. I highly recommend it. It's worth the money. It's definitely, you know, it's one of those movies I'll absolutely buy. Even if I wasn't a Rocky fan, this is a standalone movie. You would enjoy it no matter if you've seen Rocky 4 or any of the other ones. It definitely helps to understand the history, but this is definitely a standalone movie. It was a great movie. I highly recommend it. So at Crosswit, Creed 2, huge success. It delivers. It was awesome. Go see it. And we'll be seeing you again soon. Until then, you guys have a good weekend, and